Hey there, fellow thrill seekers and ghost enthusiasts. Let's be real, who doesn't love a good ghost story? Especially when it involves real places with some seriously spooky histories. We're talking about those cities where the veil between our world and the spectral realm seems just a bit thinner. We're taking you on a journey through America and giving you a first-hand look into the supernatural realm. That's right, America's most haunted cities awaits. And honestly, I'm surprised that my own house wasn't on this list. Well, maybe next year. Anyway, buckle up, because we're about to embark on a bone-chilling road trip across the United States to uncover the spine-tingling tales and paranormal hotspots that make these cities havens for ghost hunters and history buffs alike. From the misty graveyards of Savannah to the battle-scarred grounds of Gettysburg, we're diving headfirst into the unknown. We're talking about places where the echoes of the past linger in the shadows, and where every creaking floorboard or flickering light could be a sign that we're not alone. So, grab your EMF readers, your skepticism, and maybe a change of underwear because things are about to get spooky. First stop on our haunted road trip? None other than New Orleans, Louisiana, the Big Easy, home of jazz, gumbo, and enough ghost stories to make your hair stand on end. This city's got it all. A melting pot of cultures, a history that goes back centuries, and, let's be honest, probably more than a few skeletons hiding in some of these closets. We're talking about a place built on a foundation of voodoo, vampire lore, and good old-fashioned ghost stories. I mean, have you ever walked down Bourbon Street at night? The energy is palpable, and a little bit sticky, but mostly palpable. The LaLaurie Mansion sends shivers down your spine, even if you don't believe in ghosts. Built in 1832, it was home to Madame Delphine LaLaurie. She had a dark side and was known for her cruel treatment of slaves, truly horrific, torture chamber levels of cruelty. After a fire in 1834, rescuers found a hidden chamber with unspeakable horrors. To this day, people report screams, apparitions, and a sense of dread within those walls. All right, ghost hunters, let's trade in the spooky jazz music for some eerie Spanish moss as we head on over to Savannah, Georgia. This city is like stepping into a time capsule, with its cobblestone streets, antebellum architecture, and enough ghost stories to make you want to sleep with a nightlight. Savannah is known for its southern charm, but beneath that genteel facade lies a history filled with tragedy, mystery, and more than a few restless spirits. We're talking about a city that's witnessed its fair share of yellow fever outbreaks, duels, and pirate shenanigans. And let's not forget those iconic cemeteries. Savannah is practically built on top of burial grounds, which, let's be honest, is prime real estate for a good ghost story. Bonaventure Cemetery. Even the name sounds spooky, am I right? This place is like walking into a movie set, but instead of actors, you've got centuries-old headstones, overgrown vines, and an atmosphere that's both beautiful and unsettling. Established in 1846, Bonaventure Cemetery isn't just a resting place for the dearly departed. It's a sprawling outdoor museum of Savannah's past. You've got ornate obelisks, crumbling mausoleums, and statues of angels that look like they might just come to life when the sun goes down. But this place isn't just about pretty scenery. It's also home to some of the most persistent ghost stories in Savannah. People have reported seeing apparitions wandering among the tombs, hearing disembodied voices whispering among the trees, and feeling an overwhelming sense of sadness and unease. One of the most famous residents of Bonaventure is little Gracie Watson. Her haunting statue, with its eternally sad eyes, is said to move on its own. Some visitors even claim to have seen her little ghost playing among the headstones. Yeah, this place is definitely not for the faint of heart. Alright, buckle up, Spooky Squad, because we're marching straight into Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This place isn't just some dusty old battlefield, though. Oh no, it's practically drowning in history. And you know what they say? History's got a real bad habit of leaving some seriously pissed off ghosts behind. Gettysburg saw some of the most brutal fighting of the Civil War, and you can bet your bottom dollar that energy doesn't just vanish into thin air. It's like someone spilled ghost juice all over this town. And trust me, it's the strong stuff. Now, I'm not saying I've seen a ghost soldier riding a cannonball down Devil's Den, but I'm not saying I haven't either. You feel me? The point is, people claim to see these ghostly regiments all the time, still locked in their final, desperate struggle. And the weirdest part? They don't seem to realize the war's over, which, I guess, is fair enough. If I died in a ditch somewhere, I'd probably take a while to catch up on current events too. One of the creepiest spots in Gettysburg has gotta be Devil's Den. Imagine this, massive boulders strewn across a hillside, shadows twisting between them, and the faintest whisper of drum beats? Cannon fire? You tell me. People say that's the sound of the battle raging on, only audible to those sensitive to, the screams of the restless dead. Or maybe it's just the wind, but like spooky wind, right? And if you're really brave enough to tempt fate, you can spend a night at the Gettysburg Hotel. It's supposedly crawling with ghosts, from Confederate soldiers pacing the halls to a phantom bellboy who's really bad at his job, considering he's been dead for over a century. Look, I'm not saying any of this is real, but I am saying that if I were a ghost, Gettysburg is exactly the kind of place I'd hang out. It's got atmosphere, history, and enough leftover resentment to power a small ghost town. All right, ghost hunters, next stop, Charleston, South Carolina. Now, Charleston's a beautiful city, all charming cobblestone streets and elegant mansions draped in Spanish moss. But don't let the southern hospitality fool you. This place has seen some things. And by things, I mean pirates, plagues, and enough tragic history to make your head spin. We're talking about a city built on the backs of slavery, ravaged by war and natural disasters. So yeah, you better believe there are a few restless spirits lurking beneath the surface. They're practically part of the decor here, like antique furniture, but with more moaning and less upholstery. Now, if you're really looking for a good scare in Charleston, you gotta visit the Old City Jail. This place was basically a dungeon back in the day, where pirates, murderers, and all sorts of unsavory characters went to rot. Can you imagine the stories those walls could tell? I bet they'd be absolutely terrifying. And guess what? It's said to be one of the most haunted places in all of Charleston. People claim to have seen shadowy figures, heard disembodied voices, and felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Basically, it's like stepping into a horror movie, but with fewer jump scares and more existential terror. But hey, maybe all those restless spirits just want someone to talk to, Maybe they're lonely. Or maybe they're looking for revenge. It's really a toss-up with ghosts, isn't it? One thing's for sure, though. Charleston's got ghosts. Lots of them. And they're just waiting to tell their stories, if you're brave enough to listen. Just, maybe bring some sage and a salt circle, just in case. Alright folks, hold on to your broomsticks because we're about to dive headfirst into Salem, Massachusetts. And no, we're not talking about the Sanderson sisters, although I wouldn't mind bumping into Winifred and the gang. Salem's a town practically synonymous with witchcraft, thanks to those infamous witch trials back in the 1600s. Mass hysteria, false accusations, people seeing the devil in their soup, the whole 9 yards. It wasn't exactly a fun time to be alive, especially if you were a fan of herbal remedies or owning a pet cat. So, it's no surprise that Salem's got more than its fair share of ghost stories. I mean, with that kind of dark history, you'd practically have to salt the earth to keep the spirits away. And even then, I'm not sure it would help. The witch house is supposedly a hotbed of paranormal activity. People claim to have seen shadowy figures lurking in the corners, heard whispers coming from empty rooms, and felt an oppressive feeling that sends chills down your spine. If you think the witch house is bad, wait until you hear about the old burying point. This spooky cemetery is the final resting place for many accused witches, including Giles Corey, who was pressed to death with heavy stones. People say you can still hear Corey's dying breaths whispering through the wind. Salem might be a tourist trap these days, but there's no denying the dark history that lingers beneath the surface. All right, let's set sail for the foggy streets of San Francisco. You know, the city by the bay, home of sourdough bread bowls, and, oh yeah, one of the most notorious prisons in American history, Alcatraz. I'm talking about the kind of place that could make even the toughest criminal curl up in the fetal position. Surrounded by frigid water, with a reputation for housing some of the most infamous gangsters, Alcatraz is practically a recipe for some grade A haunting. People have reported hearing disembodied whispers, cell doors slamming shut on their own, and even ghostly figures lurking in the shadows. I mean, if those walls could talk, imagine the stories they'd tell. I bet they'd be way more terrifying than anything anyone could cook up. But, hold on, we're not done with San Francisco's spooky side just yet. Buckle up, because we're heading to the Winchester Mystery House. This place is like the ultimate DIY project gone wrong. But instead of a leaky faucet, you get confused ghosts. Sarah Winchester, the heiress to the Winchester rifle fortune, believes she was cursed by the spirits of those killed by the family's firearms. To appease these spirits, she spent 38 years continuously building and rebuilding the mansion. Yeah, you heard that right. 38 years. The result? A labyrinthine mansion with staircases that lead to nowhere, doors that open to brick walls, and windows overlooking other rooms. It's like Sarah Winchester threw a deck of cards in the air and built a house based on where they landed. Some say the spirits still roam the halls, confused and disoriented. I don't blame them, honestly. I get turned around just trying to find the bathroom in this place. All right, from the foggy streets of San Francisco, we're heading to the Windy City, Chicago, baby, home of deep dish pizza, passionate sports fans, and hey, enough ghostly tales to make your blood run cold. First up, let's talk about the Congress Plaza Hotel. This grand old dame has seen it all, from presidents to gangsters. And speaking of gangsters, rumor has it that none other than Al Capone himself still roams the halls, probably upset he can't get a decent Tommy gun these days. Guests have reported flickering lights, disembodied voices, and even full-on apparitions in period clothing. I guess some things never go out of style, not even death. Now, if you thought zoos were just for cute animal encounters, think again. Because Chicago's Lincoln Park Zoo has a spooky side too. Yeah, turns out, even the animals aren't the only residents sticking around after closing time. There have been reports of shadowy figures lurking near the old lion house. And some say they've even heard the roar of a lion long gone. Look, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to be caught in the reptile house after dark. Some believe these ghostly encounters are the result of a tragic fire that ravaged the zoo in the early 1900s. Whatever the reason, one thing's for sure. This zoo is more than just a walk in the park. It's a walk on the wild side of the afterlife. All right, buckle up, because we're heading to the city that never sleeps, the Big Apple, the concrete jungle, New York City. And let me tell you, this city's got more ghosts than a season of ghost adventures. First stop, the Morris Jumel Mansion. This place is practically dripping in history, having served as a headquarters for both George Washington and the British during the American Revolution. Talk about awkward family reunions. Am I right? It's no surprise that with all that history, a few spirits decided to stick around. Visitors and staff have reported seeing apparitions from the past and hearing unexplained footsteps, and even feeling cold spots. I guess even ghosts need a place to crash in the city that never sleeps. Now, for our next stop, we're venturing to one of New York City's most iconic addresses, the Dakota Building. This place has seen its fair share of famous faces, but none more tragic than John Lennon. As you probably know, Lennon was tragically shot and killed right outside the Dakota's entrance. Since then, there have been numerous reports of strange occurrences, with some even claiming to have encountered Lennon's ghost. Some residents claim to have seen him in the hallways, often near the archway where he took his last breath. Others report hearing his music echoing through the building. Look, I'm not saying it's definitely John Lennon, but if I was a ghost, I'd probably haunt a place with a sweet grand piano too. All right, ghost enthusiasts and history buffs, buckle up, because we're about to dive headfirst into the heart of American politics, Washington, D.C. You might think it's all about elections and filibusters, but trust me, there's a whole lot more going on here than meets the eye. We're talking about ghostly presidents roaming the halls, unexplained noises echoing through the chambers. It's enough to make even the most skeptical politician question their reality. First up, we've got the big kahuna itself, the White House. This iconic building has seen it all, from state dinners to, well, potential ghost sightings. Multiple presidents, including Harry Truman and even Winston Churchill, have reported some seriously spooky encounters within these walls. Cold spots, flickering lights, the works. It's enough to make you wonder if the ghosts of presidents past are just hanging around, making sure the current resident is up to snuff. But the White House isn't the only place in D.C. where Lincoln's ghost supposedly roams free. There have been reports of sightings at Ford's Theater, where he was assassinated, and even at his former summer home, the Lincoln Cottage. Some say he's still looking for peace after his untimely demise, while others believe he's just checking in on the nation he fought so hard to preserve. Either way, it's clear that Lincoln's legacy extends far beyond the grave. But hold on, because it's not just Lincoln haunting the halls of power. Dolly Madison, the beloved former First Lady, is said to make her presence known at the Octagon House, which served as a temporary White House during the War of 1812. People claim to have smelled her signature rose perfume and witnessed her tending to the gardens, as if she never left. Hey, maybe she just really loved that house. And then there's the story of Andrew Jackson, the 7th president, who supposedly still haunts his former bedroom in the White House. Staffers have reported hearing his booming laughter and the heavy thud of his boots echoing through the halls. Look, I don't know about you, but if I heard those sounds in the middle of the night, I'd be hightailing it out of there faster than you can say manifest destiny. All right, folks, we're trading in the political intrigue of D.C. for the sun-drenched streets of St. Augustine, Florida. Don't let the palm trees and beaches fool you, though. This place is steeped in history, and where there's history, there are bound to be a few restless spirits lurking about. We're talking about centuries-old forts, haunted lighthouses, and enough ghostly tales to make your hair stand on end. Our first stop takes us to the Castillo de San Marcos, a 17th century Spanish fort that has seen its fair share of battles, bloodshed, and, you guessed it, paranormal activity. Visitors and staff alike have reported hearing unexplained footsteps echoing through the corridors, doors slamming shut on their own, and even shadowy figures darting along the ramparts. Some say these are the ghosts of Spanish soldiers who died defending the fort, while others believe they're just tourists who forgot to reapply their sunscreen. But the Castillo isn't the only place in St. Augustine with a haunted history. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lighthouses are creepy enough on their own, right? But add in a few ghostly apparitions, and you've got yourself a recipe for a sleepless night. People claim to have heard girls' laughter echoing through the tower and seen their shadowy figures darting amongst the dunes. And as for the lighthouse keeper, well, let's just say you don't want to be caught alone in the tower with him at night. St. Augustine is also home to the infamous Huguenot Cemetery, the oldest Protestant cemetery in the United States. With its moss-draped trees, crumbling headstones, and eerie silence, it's the perfect setting for a good old-fashioned ghost hunt. Visitors have reported seeing orbs of light floating among the graves, feeling cold spots, and even hearing whispers carried on the wind. Look, I'm not saying it's the ghosts of disgruntled Huguenots, but I'm not ruling it out either. Well, folks, there you have it. Our whirlwind tour of America's most haunted cities has come to an end. From the ghostly streets of New Orleans to the eerie battlefields of Gettysburg, we've explored the spooky side of history. So, the next time you're planning a trip, why not add a little paranormal activity to your itinerary? Be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Until next time, keep it spooky and keep exploring.